Welcome back. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and follow me at DirtleMTG on Twitter to keep up to date with the most recent videos and other posts. You can help support this content by hitting like and share, and by checking out the links in the description below. Alright, it's time to dirtle. Today we're going down to the battlefield to prove our resolve with Tori D'avenent. Across the barren plain are Morophon and the pairing of Tymna and Sakashima. Unfortunately, the Rivaz player mulligans a few times, but seemingly doesn't find anything good in their hand, and they withdraw from the game. I win the die roll and draw planes, which is a relief because I wasn't quite sure about this hand I kept. I drop a land and pass. Morophon's turn has a swamp to the field. The partner player drops a Morphic Pool. I draw a Path to Exile for the turn. I play a mountain and then cast the Thematic Compass. Orborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth hits the field for the Morophon player. Fed Heath comes down for the partners, and it's followed by a casting of Nascent Metamorph. I receive a generous gift to hand and drop a Rugged Prairie. I activate the Thematic Compass and grab a mountain from my deck. Shizo, Death Storehouse hits the field for Morophon. They then cast Fulminator Mage to, as they put it, use it against the first person who attacks them. Vibe check is good though, and non-malicious. The partners drop a Snow Swamp and then cast Tymna the Weaver from their command zone. They move to combat and swing the Metamorph at me. It triggers but unfortunately becomes a mountain and dies. I draw Ashling the Pilgrim for the turn and drop a mountain. I cast Mages of the Wheel for some defense and pass. The turn rolls to Morophon and the swamp enters. Beckon Apparition is cast, exiling the Metamorph from the partner player's graveyard, and the Morophon player gains a spirit token. Innocent Blood is then cast, and each player sacrifices a creature, leaving only the Fulminator Mage standing alone. Demonic Tear then hits the stack, and the Morophon player tears up a card. Temple of Deceit lands for the partners, and they scry, passing afterward. I gain a Flawless Maneuver on my turn. I activate the Compass, and grab a Plains from my deck. I then play the land, and follow that by casting Ashling. Cabal Coffers hits the field for Morophon. It's activated for 5 black mana, and Grave Pact is cast. The player activates Shizo to give my Ashling Fear, which I am confused by, and they move to attacks. They swing the Fulminator Mage at me, and I take 2 with no blocks. They comment about how fearful I am, and I reply that I'm not Ashling, and our jovial exchange continues. At the end of the turn, Enlightened Tutor is cast by the partner player, and they tutor up a Soul Ring to the top of their deck. To the partner player, and Tectonic Edge hits the field. Soul Ring comes down, and Cryptoplasm is cast afterward. Next is a quick exchange of land destruction, with Tech Edge being activated by the partner players to destroy Morophon's Cabal Coffers, and them retaliating with Fulminator Mage being sacrificed to destroy the Fetid Heath. When the Fulminator dies, Grave Pact triggers, and the board is cleared of creatures. To my turn, and I get a mountain. I play the land, and having no creatures yet to summon again, I activate the Compass to grab a Plains from my deck. The turn rolls to Morophon, and another swamp comes into play. They cast Solemn Simulacrum. When it enters, they get another swamp. Isolated Chapel comes into view for the partner player. They cast a Frost Titan, and with its ETB, they keep Shizo Death Storehouse tapped. I have a Faithless Looting to my hand, and drop a Plains to the table. I cast the Looting, drawing Access Tunnel into Plains, and choose to discard said Plains and the Wanderer since I'm really not getting any damage-based board wipes. I then cast my commander, the Fury Raider. I pass, and at the end of turn, the Thematic Compass becomes the Spires of Orazca. Back to the Dark Rainbow Jelly, and Garuda hits the field. It mills everyone for 4, and a Resolute Rider enters the battlefield from the player's graveyard for Garuda's trigger. 2 combat, and they swing their Sad Robot at the partner player. That said player does not block, and they take the 2. The partner player begins their turn with casting Sakashima, and when it enters, it becomes a copy of the Frost Titan. Trinket Mage is then cast, and when it enters, they tutor up a Skull Clamp. Into the aggressive part of the turn, and the OG Frost Titan is swung at the Morophon player. The Titan triggers, and they tap down the only defender Morophon has. Unable to block, the defending player takes 6, dropping to 34. My turn brings me a Luminous Broodmoth, which is a card I still need to bind paper. I drop an Access Tunnel, and then deploy the Moth. I move to combat, and get some free damage in with my commander against the Morophon player. They take 3 commander damage, and I pass mana up for removal. Morophon's turn has them cast a Bitter Blossom. Lash Wrath hits the stack afterward, and equips itself to a Germ token once in play. The Germ is a 7/7. Core Haven hits the field for the partner player, a very good legendary land and one of my favorites. Blade of Selves is then cast. Once in play, it's assigned to be equipped to the Frost Titan version of Sakashima, but in response, I cast Path to Exile for 3 total mana to get rid of the Titan. Sakashima gets exiled back to the command zone, and they gain the land. The equip fizzles because it no longer has a target, and Skull Clamp is then cast. Once it's in play, it is equipped to the Trinket Mage. Into combat, the Frost Titan is swung into the Morophon player, and with the trigger, they tap down the Germ token. The defending player assigns the Sad Robot to intercept, but it goes down in combat, drawing the player a card and triggering Grave Pact. I sacrifice my commander and Trinket Mage dies. Luckily, the Broodmoth triggers and brings back my commander, which now has a flying counter on it, and the partner player draws 2 cards. Clifftop Retreat comes to my hand, and I drop it to the battlefield. I cast the Sword of Hearth and Home, and then equip it to the Broodmoth. I move to attacks, and swing the Moth at the partner player, and my commander at the Morophon. My commander triggers, and I get to untap the Broodmoth. Damage is good, and the Sword of Hearth and Home triggers. I blink my commander to remove its flying counter, and grab a Plains. Bitter Blossom triggers on Morophon's upkeep, and makes a Fairy Rogue token with flying. Cabal Stronghold hits the field. Evershrike is returned to play from the graveyard via enchanting it with the Edge of Divinity, and frankly the art also needs a playmat. There's so many playmats I need. The Lash Wraith is then equipped to the Resolute Rider, and the Germ token dies because it no longer has a toughness. This triggers the Grave Pact, and the Frost Titan goes down, and my commander is sacrificed again. It returns with flying again thanks to the Broodmoth. Resolute Rider is activated to gain lifelink until end of turn, and the Morophon player moves to combat. They swing the Rider and Garuda at the partner player, but I really don't want them gaining any life. Activate the Spires to remove the Rider from combat, and the partner player takes 6. To the partner player, and they cast a Scale Lord Reckoner. Skull Clamp gets equipped to it, and is followed by the Blade of Selves. Iroa's God of Victory blesses my hand on the draw. I cast an Overloaded Winds of Abandon, and opponent's creatures get exiled. I then cast Iroa's, and move to combat. I swing the Moth at the partner player and my commander at the Morophon player. Damage is good, and the sword triggers. I blink my commander again, and grab a mountain from my deck. Back to the Morophon player, and another Fairy Rogue token is created. They cast their commander and pick the creature type Rogue. Lash Wraith gets equipped to the token, and it becomes a 14/14. Drowned Catacomb hits the field for the partner player, and Tymna makes a return to the battlefield. Once there, it is equipped with the Skull Clamp. The Wandering Emperor appears in my hand, and I move to attacks. I swing the Moth and Iroas at the Morophon player, and Tori at the partner player. My commander triggers, and I untap the Moth, and gain trample on my red creatures. Core Haven is activated by the partner player to take the Broodmoth out of combat, which unfortunately also will negate the sword. There are no blocks, and damage is good. The Morophon player drops to 15, and the partners to 17. Another turn for the Boundless One, another fairy token. A Swamp to the field is followed by a Shizo activation targeting Morophon. The Jelly General now has Fear, and they move to combat. Morophon swings at me, and I remove it and bat it aside with the Spires of Vraska. Underground River hits the field for the partner players. They cast Ow, the Dawn Sky. Moving to attacks, they swing Tymna at the Morophon player, and Tymna is intercepted by the large fairy token. I cast the Wandering Emperor, and once the Planeswalker is in play, exile Tymna with the -2 ability to deprive my opponent of the card draw. In the second main, I was equipped with the Skull Clamp and the Blade of Selves. My turn grants a Legion's Initiative. I activate the Emperor and give a 1/1 counter to my commander. I cast Legion's Initiative and move to combat. I aggress everything against the partner player, unwilling to let them have 2 extra out triggers during their next turn. My commander triggers, and the partner player responds with Core Haven, taking my Moth out of combat again. The rest of the damage gets through, dropping my opponent to 3. I pass. Fairy to the field, and Morophon drops a Swamp. 2 attacks, and both available fairy tokens attack my Glorious Emperor. Unable to save the Wandering One, I block the small fairy token to kill it. The Planeswalker goes down in combat, and Grave Pact triggers when the other fairy token dies. This has Al being sacrificed, and I choose and sacrifice Iroas. Since it was a creature, it comes back with a flying counter thanks to the Broodmoth. Otherwise, the partner player draws 2 cards, and Al lets the player gander at the top 4 cards of their deck. They get a Solemn Simulacrum to the field, and grab a Plains with its ETB. In the second main, Lash Wraith is equipped to the untapped fairy token, and the player passes. The partner players have a strip mine to the field, and it is cracked immediately to get rid of my Spires of Vraska. That kind of blows. Praetor's Grasp is then cast on me, and they search my library for any card they want. This has me thinking they're going for some kind of mass removal, or some kind of removal in general. Skull Clamp gets equipped to the Sad Robot, and the player moves to combat. They swing said robot into the Morophon player. The creature is blocked by the large fairy, and I respond with Generous Gift to destroy the Skull Clamp, and they gain an elephant token. With hand sizes as low as they are, I feel like limiting my opponent's ability to draw cards is probably good for my survival. The Simulacrum dies, and the partner player only draws one card. The partner player then decides to concede the game. I get an Emergent Zone on my turn, and move immediately to combat. I swing everything at my remaining opponent, and my commander gives red creatures trample and taps my Moth. All of my creatures have menace, making blocking against lethal impossible, and I win the game. Good game to my opponents. I have to say, over the last week, finding 4 players to stay in a game is difficult, and they do leave for different reasons. Still, some lessons to be learned here. The deck likely needs some more card draw to keep up the pressure. That is almost a certainty. Tori reminds me of a new version of Agrus Kos, but that doesn't mean the card is much better with the power where it is today on cards. This particular commander might be better suited to a go wide strategy with a lot of tokens to take advantage of the abilities, instead of my style of play, which concentrates on a few good creatures dominating in combat. Thanks again for tuning in to another casual commander game here on Dirtle Magic. See you next time.